side and then or next to the oh, dude, his body's flew across the room.
He fucking flew, dude.
Hello? Is it me you're looking for? I can see it in your eyes. I can feel it in your touch. Pointed.
Oh, you just grabbed it. Who said I like to rough like that?
Oh, hello. I'm a good girl because I'm good at what I do. Come on, Jay.
I'm trying to wake up, goddammit. I gotta go to school.
Make you work for it.
I wonder if I could beat up. Oh my god! You should have been the one to get hit for that.
Not bad. But if you are bad, you're good at being bad. And we like people who are good at being bad. Who wants to play with me? Anybody? Do I have any people who want to take me up on that offer? Oh, what the fuck? Oh, Bloodella! Oh, for the new people who are in here, welcome to the shit show that is Wicked Love. So, I hope you enjoy yourself. It's gonna be a wild ride. And we are up and going.
All right. Well, welcome everyone to Raw and Uncut. Today's topic is veterans, and we have two lovely guests today. My father-in-law, Papa Tony, or Tony Caratanudo, and then Burner, aka what is your actual name?
I am Brandon.
Brandon?
Yeah.
Brandon what? What's your last name?
Engling?
Oh, really? No, you're gonna go sit right now. Sorry, y'all. And then
Pronounced
I
as
have
like
my
a beer.
like a beer.
The Yingling
Got-
beer. Yeah.
Oh, okay, gotcha. And then we have our lovely co-host or host. We both host. I don't know how this goes.
Co-host. Either way.
Co-host, Wicked Love,
AKA Lacey.
Lacey. Yes, I did have to do that earlier. I was like, it's Lacey, aka Wicked, but you know.
Right.
And we are just going to be asking you guys a lot of questions based on your military career and how it went for you and how things were when you guys first got into when you left and how you think things are going now. I'm going to start off with my father-in-law because I know quite a bit about his career. Um but I have questions other people don't know. So, when did you enlist?
October 26, 1977.
Dang, you know the exact day.
It's a day you don't usually forget.
Right.
Do you remember that day when you enlisted and how it went? Were you nervous? Were you scared? Were you anything? Any
Clear.
emotion?
Yeah, that was the first day of boot camp. So you have that initial period of time where you kind of swear in ahead of time, but that was the day I actually left home.
When you left home.
Home and showed up in Great Lakes. to start boot camp. So
I know there were tears or anger. Wasn't there tears and anger? Like the family, your mom did not want you to go.
yeah, there wasn't anger, but there was definitely tears.
Hmm.
And it was sadness. I remember that day like it was yesterday. Um, watching them as I hopped into the van that was taking me to the process center, watching my mom and dad. My dad was very stoic, but you can tell he was sad, and of course, mom was crying in the doorway.
Aw. What about you, Burner? What was your first day? Do you remember?
July 17th, 2017.
And how did you feel that day that you were going?
So I had been talking, and I know currently, at least the recruiters in my area, they do like a PT program. So a couple days a week we go in after school. We do workouts to kind of train us for like a PT test to be able to pass our first PT test. So
Hmm.
we don't fall into that category of people who fail and they're, constantly playing catch up with how active they are.
Okay.
Um, as far as like family goes, my parents, my mom had been super on board with it up until the day I left, and my dad had tried talking me out of it for upwards of 6 to 8 months, and everything
Wow.
just kind of flipped the day I left. Like, well, my dad didn't show up to my swear in or me
Oh.
leaving. My mom showed up and she tried, are you sure you really want to do this? And I'm like, I already signed paperwork. Like, we're gone.
We were doing this. What about you, Lacey? You got any questions for him to start off?
Um, Not at the moment, no.
Okay. That's
Sorry.
okay. That's all right. I got a ton. I actually because I was very excited for this. So, when you guys went, how many years have you been in Papa Tony? When you were in?
I did 7 years of active duty, and then I finished my career with 20 more years in the reserves.
Hmm.
So with multiple deployments, shipboard duty, in
Hmm.
the field with the Marines, overseas. So 27 years altogether.
Burner, how long were you in for?
So I was in for 3. I am currently looking into joining my local reserve unit
Oh, very
to
nice.
hopefully help out the rest of my pension that I signed up for because I didn't pay in
Okay.
for a retirement.
Okay. Um, when you guys first went in, what was your first duty station, Papa Tony?
Yokosuka after boot camp, I
After
guess
boot
is that.
camp. Yep.
I was stationed at the Naval Hospital in Yokosuka, Japan, and I worked my first duty at the hospital was working labor and delivery and nursery for a year.
That is still the best thing ever to hear because I never pictured you working in that until you told me and all the details of that job. Burner, what was your first duty station after boot camp?
Uh, so I was Army. I went to Fort Carson, Colorado for my
Oh,
first and only.
okay. And that's what I meant to ask too. You guys are in two different branches. I know, again, I'm going to try to ask like I don't know, but I know a lot of my father-in-laws. But Papa Tony, tell us the branch that you joined.
The best branch, the Navy.
Oh, that's right.
Let's
And
go.
then Burner was Army. You know, my stepdad was in the Army, and that was I will say Navy to Army. I love the Navy. Just a little bit more. I appreciate all the branches,
Understandable.
but the Navy is definitely I would say more family caring than the Army was. But again, like that's just from, an Army brat's point of view, I guess. So,
So
um
the best branch, That is the course.
Oh, that's the court. Ah ha ha. Isn't he supposed to be in here?
Yes, Soul, aren't
Soul?
you supposed to be in here with us, sir? I do believe.
So
There he
yeah.
is. All right.
Is he muted right now?
He is
Yes, he
muted.
is.
Okay. Papa Tony, how did you imagine the military life being before you joined? Was it what you thought it would be, or was it
No,
no?
no.
Because everybody has that idea when they go in, like it's gonna be just like this. And did any of that come to fruition, or was it a big reality check?
Well, to answer the first part of the question, was it what I thought? I
Mm-hmm.
had this unrealistic um, imagination because growing up in my time, the TV shows at the time that were popular were like McHale's Navy and CPO Sharkey, which was with
Mm-hmm.
Don Rickles. So McHale's Navy, old black and white show where they had Tim Conway and Ernest Borgnine. So I thought, wow, this looks like fun. I really want to do this. But the Navy was honestly, from the time I was a little boy, I was
Mm-hmm.
always enamored with the Navy. So I guess it was a foregone conclusion that that's where I was going to head. I didn't know that was my path.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to St. John's University to be a pharmacist, and decided I didn't want to do that anymore and dropped out of school to join the Navy. And of course, since I was in a pharmacy program in college, the natural thing the recruiters did was push me into being a hospital corpsman.
Yeah.
No, it was not, and I would never, as a 19-year-old kid, would I think I would be watching ladies delivering babies and taking care of babies in a nursery and getting yelled at for ladies in labor. No, I never thought that was not what I pictured. No.
Hey, it just prepared you for, fatherhood. So it worked
Right.
out. It worked out.
So, just
And
so
yeah,
everybody knows, this is Soul Insidious who has joined us. He is Pumpkinhead.
Pumpkinhead.
Look, we're loving the look tonight, Soul.
Yeah.
So, uh, what were the questions you had originally asked them so that Soul can kind of.
So the first question is, when did you enlist in the military?
1999.
1999? How old are you?
You're
So you're
slightly
older than me.
low. I don't know if it's just me. Hold
No,
on.
he's a little low.
How's that?
Much better.
Yeah.
Oh, so 1999. What branch did you enlist into?
Marine Corps.
Marine Corps. That's some badass stuff right there. All right, wasn't ready for that. Not the pumpkin head. I wouldn't have pictured that, but okay. um, and then when you joined the military, was it what you were expecting?
Nope.
No.
Not
Okay.
at all.
What about you, Burner? Was it anything that you expected when you were
Not even a
joining?
little bit.
I'm seeing a trend. It's not what you guys
It's
were preparing, like not what you pictured. Was it better or worse?
For me, probably the best thing that ever happened to me.
Well, that's good. Papa Tony.
I would agree with that. I think it took me out of the Bronx in New York. A lot of my friends for years were still hanging out on the corner doing things that we did as 16, 17-year-old kids. Meantime, I had, gone across the world and seen other societies and other cultures. Got to learn about people that are from all over the United States. So for me, um, I look back and go, and it was the best thing I've ever did in my life. I did a different path. I would have been
Mhm.
successful if I had gone finished college,
Mhm.
but eventually finished college later on in life. But it was the best opportunity, and some of my best friends are still guys I served with when I was on active duty in the reserves with the Marines, etc.
Oh, and Burner, what about you?
I would say it's definitely one of my better decisions I've ever made. Uh, it helped with a lot of how I approach certain situations.
Mhm.
I was a very hot-headed, not thinking type of kid. Um,
Gotcha.
definitely taught me a lot of patience and, you know, being able to just kind of go with the flow, even if the plan doesn't pan out how it was initially written.
I like that. Yeah. Um, uh, so what was the first place that you went to after boot camp? That was another
Camp,
question that I asked.
Camp Butler, Okinawa, Japan.
Hoorah.
Ah.
Hoorah, Okinawa.
Yeah, loved it there.
I have only heard good things about Japan so far.
There's nothing bad about Japan. It's
I would,
different.
I would love to go to Japan.
Me too.
There's
I,
something different about waking up on an island, and it's just usually just warm weather. I mean, they have it's I don't know. It's like you don't get snow. I mean, snow is a foreign thing there, but like they had, was it a tsunami season and stuff like that. It's
mhm.
just it was different. Like
That sounds scary. Tsunamis. That's not
well,
Mhm.
I mean,
fun.
To
I
me,
How
mean,
did
Japan's
how you
biggest thing is just the culture and the people. The
Mhm.
people respect other people. Um, you don't nothing like it is almost any else other place in the world.
Right.
the cultural heritage alone is just it took me out of my mindset. And I mean, as an American, we have a certain mindset, but
Mhm.
when they're generally just open and warm and greeting, it throws you through a loop. We're kind of like you're like they're kind of nice for no reason.
They
And
like Americans.
they do. Like you want to kind of learn their language, but they want to speak American to you. So you're like, okay, that makes it easier. But just generally, just nice people,
Right.
and their values are so different from ours. So it's like, wow, the things that we took for granted growing up, and they're just wholesome. It changed your whole mindset on how just to interact and just be a good person and just I don't know, just how you just approach things in life.
Right.
All right. Wicked.
Um.
Anything.
I don't know if you already asked this one, but what made y'all decide to enlist? Whoever.
Well, for me, I mean, I was 18. My mother gave me the choice. She's like, you go to some nice college, you go to work, or you can see, join the military. So I was like, I just got out of school, so school was the last thing on my mind. Like, nah, I just,
Right.
I when you're 18, you're just like you just want to hang with your friends and stuff like that. But it was like that kind of that day to day got boring, and like I was like, you know what, I'll just work for a few months and then look at the school thing. But one of my friends was like, hey, why don't you join the buddy program with me, and sign up and go to the military? I'm like, military? I like going with my friends. Screw it, why not?
Right.
Mm.
Burner.
But
I'm sorry. I thought you were done.
oh no,
Continue.
but I didn't know like when they said the buddy program, I didn't know like I didn't even know what branch we were signing up for or anything. They're like, yeah, we're gonna join the Marine Corps. I'm like, what? Who? I thought I was like, because my dad's Army, so I was like, oh, we're going to the Army. He's like, nah, Marine Corps. I like, screw it, why not?
Right. Something different. All right. Burner, what made you decide to enlist?
So with me, personally, my great grandfather kind of inspired me. He was former army. Uh, he had passed away when I was starting to look into it. Um, so it kind of drove the point forward. Like, well, he was excited to see me go into it, so I'm gonna kind of stick with it. Get myself into the headspace of leaving and giving the lifestyle a try.
Right.
Got
And
And
Miss Tony?
Um, I guess as I stated, I was going to university and my parents were paying for the university. I had just paid for 4 years of private Catholic school and for high school, and my dad was working 5 to 6 days a week, you know, 100 hours a week, overtime, etc., just to help pay for my education. And I just finally said enough is enough. I have to do this on my own. I had never really been out of the house. I'm first generation American, so I have no history of the military within my family um, to relate to. So I just one day I just decided I was going to make the leap of faith, and I did it, and it's paid off incredibly for me. So I just didn't want to see my dad work himself to death just to try to pay to me to go to college. And college back then was, I mean, it was costing $3,000 a year to go to St. John's, a private college in New York, which, that was a lot of money for 1977. So,
mhm.
Right.
Did you guys, during your career, was you, Papa Tony, I know you've been through a few deployments. Did Soul or Burner, did you guys go through any deployments yourselves?
No, I was just mainly just stationed there. I mean, I had chances to do a couple of floats to, but I
Oh,
You're,
just like,
you cut out,
you're
love.
cutting out, darling.
oh no, I had a couple of chances to actually do a couple of deployments, but I was just, I don't know, I was having so much fun there. I was like, nah, I'll just stay here again for another year.
I'm surprised you
Yeah,
were given the option to
me
go
too.
and not like made to go.
Like I
No,
said, voluntold. That's a big one.
Right?
Voluntold.
You do what you're told.
That's right.
contrary to belief, they actually give you a choice every now and then. Not all the
Mm.
time, but they give you a choice.
Surprising.
Burner, did you go?
Uh, so funny story about that actually. So Fourth ID or the Fourth Infantry Division on Fort Carson. There are three main. Um, I can't think of the word. Slipped my mind. Uh, First Division, Second Division, Third Division go on deployment rotations.
Hmm.
Uh, Second Division was up, and we technically fall under them. My unit did. So a bunch of us had volunteered to go on deployment with them because we wanted that type of experience, and they actually declined the deployment and just passed it off to next brigade, which I didn't know was a thing. So we get all of our gear, we get it signed out, we're going through everything, organizing it, and we just get an email like, "Hey, yeah, so we're not going anymore, and
Mm.
the third doesn't need you guys, so you guys are free to turn the stuff back in whenever."
Huh.
Well,
All right. Well, Papa Tony, tell us a little bit about some of your deployments.
oh, well, I told you I was stationed in Japan. That was a great opportunity. Then I went to sea school after, which is an advanced school for 6 months out in California. And then after that, I was stationed on a ship out of Norfolk. That's how I made it out here. That ship made an Arctic Circle deployment with the Marines. That was fun, cold but fun. And
Hmm.
then I had two deployments to Beirut, Lebanon during the civil war in Beirut. I spent half of that time of a deployment. I should have stayed on the ship, but I volunteered to go ashore with the Marines since I was FMF qualified. So I spent some time seeing combat there in Beirut the first time and the second time. And I was in Grenada when we invaded took the island back
Hmm.
from the Cuban army, the communist army that was down there trying to build a landing field. So I was the flight deck triage corpsman there. So I was taking the wounded on the flight deck, sorting sorting them out before they went down to the hangar bay to get treated further. So that was tough. And after that deployment and seeing the injuries I did, the dead bodies that I unfortunately had to body bag and stuff, that's what drove me to get out after that deployment. Um,
Really?
Besides my daughter being born, and that kind of both those things were drivers for me to get out the first time. I don't, I always
Yeah.
say it was because of my daughter, but I think
Yeah.
some of those
That's what
other
I
things,
knew as.
yeah,
That was the reason I knew.
some of those other issues still, even at my advanced age, still are memories that I rather forget.
Mhm.
Much respect, because being a corpsman, you're doing dual duties for both branches, and we respect corpsmen because y'all was right there with us.
Best thing I ever did when I was going out to the clubs when I was young, single, and stupid is to have my buddy. I always went to some Marines because the Marines took care of their dock. That
Oh yeah,
especially as a devil dock, I never had to worry about getting into a fight in a bar because the Marines would step right in and you don't touch the dock.
because most branches, well, Navy knows, but in Marine Corps, we have no doctors. The Navy's our doctors.
As you know, Sabrina, I really don't talk about that a whole lot. I really don't
That was
talk about it
actually
to
that was a first for me, honestly.
my family. A lot of them don't
Mhm.
know all that. I kind of keep that bottled up. So
Mhm. Well, thank you for sharing it with us, though. It gives
yeah.
us some insight.
Right.
It actually followed into another question that I did have was how did that affect you? Which you did tell us, it was kind of the driving decision into getting out. But what made you go back into the reserves after getting out instead of staying out like some people do?
You know, I got out because of two reasons I told you, but and then I got into the business world and I was really doing well. I was very successful in the business world, and then Desert Storm started,
Hmm.
um, and I was kind of just drawn back into what I'd really love to do, and it wasn't about making money anymore. It was about, what did you really want to do in life, and what did you plan on doing? And so I got recruited to go back in during Desert Storm, and I guess luckily for me, by the time they finished the paperwork to get me back in, the war was over. So that
Hmm.
first war was kind of quick, and after that, I just said I might as well hang on and continue this and do 20 years, and it worked out. So, so actually, it was the beginning of the next set of the first Desert Storm where they were recruiting corpsmen to deploy with the Marines, and that's how they found me. They hooked into me and got me back in. They made me an offer I could not refuse.
When you guys did get out, what rank were you in the military? Well, Papa Tony, you'll have to be last for this. But Burner and Soul, what rank were you guys when you guys decided to get out of the
When I
military?
got out, I was in Lance Corps,
Okay.
so I was just an E3.
Oh, so it was still like so how long were you in for?
Not long, 3 years.
Okay, okay.
I
Burner.
was a I was a little bit of a troublemaker. I was supposed to be an E4. I had gotten demoted shortly before I got out.
Oh no.
When I was supposed to pick up E4. So I was at an E3. I got demoted to an E2, and that's kind of where I stayed until I got out.
Oh no.
Oh, wow.
Goodness. Okay.
All that troublemaking.
All that
Shame.
troublemaking. I know. All right, Papa Tony. I
Um,
brag about Papa Tony's rank, so I'm gonna let
well,
him do it.
when I got off of active duty the first time, when I got off as a E5, I was up for E6. When I went back in, I went back in as an E5, picked up E6, E7, and E8 back to back to back. And that's when I got out. I got out as a senior chief. I was the command senior chief for Portsmouth Naval Hospital and all the reserve centers, 16 of them on the East Coast.
Hey.
Hmm I
Nice.
got to be at his retirement ceremony. It was awesome. I was like, oh, like you should have seen all the pride in everybody that was there. It was just, oh, it was so nice.
A little too long, but yeah, okay.
Yeah,
It,
it,
it
Always
was way
is.
too long.
it was nice. It was nice. Um,
Chaos
from what
said,
I've, oh, go ahead.
which sergeant did Burner punch?
Hey, I did not punch anybody. I
He
am
would never.
I am a connoisseur of knowledge, so I tend to ask too many questions.
That's enough. That'll
Curiosity
do it.
killed the cat.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. There's something about questioning authority, like no, 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 no.
well, so for a little backstory, we had this E6 who was trying to pick up his chief rank for one of our field exercises because a lot of them, if we weren't going out of state, was just on base in Fort Carson. Uh, he wanted to make sure we were brushed up on our land navigation skills and took us out to a live EOD range
Mm-hmm.
where the EOD people were going out and, training on actually disarming these. And yeah, he just brought us out there, didn't clear it with anyone, didn't tell anyone else on base other than, our first sergeant that we were going out there. So it didn't get cleared for us to leave. We left anyways, and, kind of had to cut the trip short. I wanted to question as to why we're going out there in the first place when, someone takes a wrong step and now, we're short people and we haven't even been deployed yet.
Oh,
So,
no.
can I just jump in here just real quick to show you the difference in the decades that we have on the screen right now? In my days, if you questioned the chief, you wouldn't get in trouble, but you might get your ass beat. And then you would just do what you had to do. I mean, it's changed a lot now. When people question something, they end up getting busted or something like that. What you just described, that would have never happened in during my time. So it's just a different. The military's changed a lot over the last several decades. A lot.
Definitely.
So, Chief, you're talking about they just take behind the tree line, then?
That's right. We just, in essence, we took care of our own. You just took care of it, and then you either learned from it or you know you, you rarely saw somebody do it twice after that.
Where the phrase "police your own" comes from.
Hmm.
I heard a lot of stories about how you would get punished if because again, you wouldn't get a write-up or anything like they would do now. You would get some sort of physical pain, whether it was exercising until you couldn't anymore, or whether it was doing the job that nobody else wanted to do, or I mean, I've heard a lot of different stories. Now, again, I don't know if they were over exaggerated or what, but I heard no, they're not over exaggerated.
Not over.
A
I
Pain
had
lot.
is
a
a long-lasting reminder.
Yeah, I had this boot camp. There was a Filipino chief who had put me in the dying cockroach position
Dying cockroach. I've
for
heard of
about
that one.
20 minutes before I just finally couldn't do it anymore, only because I tied a knot incorrectly on my raincoat that was stored in my locker. A dying cockroach, you get flat on your back.
And
You
put
put
your
your you
hands up.
you put your hands and legs straight up in the air and stay in that position.
I kind of
Sounds easy.
figured that's what it
Try
sounds
it.
like.
Ooh.
Try it.
Look, I've used stress positions on my son before. Like, you don't want to listen. I'm not whipping you. You're gonna go into a stress position. He hated them, and he would listen.
Oh, I heard of one was the invisible chair, and they would stack phone books and stuff on the lap to put on weight, and you had to sit there until they got tired, not the
Which will
person
never
doing it.
happen.
Yeah, yeah. And another
Or
one,
on lawn
the one that
chairs.
my stepdad told me about was holding a tree, like it was a tree that you could put your legs and feet around, and you had to hold it. You had to stay on there, and if you fell, you had to do it again and again and again.
I did
And
the
I just,
invisible chair with my son. I'd have him put his back flat against the wall and bend his legs and put his arms straight out.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I think for me, it's mountain climbers. I'll never forget those.
Oh, mountain climbers. Those are Joey's favorite.
Never heard of that one.
Ask Joy is yeah, yeah. I rather do pull ups, jumping jacks. I rather run, which I don't do well, than do mountain climbing.
It's
I
like,
don't do
I don't do well.
I would rather do anything other than mountain climbers, and that's why they got rid of them.
Yeah, that it was a punishment within a punishment.
Yes.
They realized that it was actually doing more harm than good to people,
Mm-hmm.
like actual physical harm to them. So they were like, "Oh, we got to stop this." I was like, "Wow!" After I'm already getting blasted with them in boot camp for hours on end,
Mm-hmm.
3 years later, I get talking to a young guy, and he's like, "Mountain climbers? We never did mountain climbers." I was like, "What the hell is this bullshit?"
Yeah, my knees still thank me to this day about that.
Well, welcome, honey,
You're
to the
welcome,
topic.
Chaos.
Do you have any questions for these fine veterans we have here? I've asked quite a few, so I'm giving other people a chance.
What, if any, injuries did you sustain during your time when you served? Whether as like minimal as I stubbed my toe to I broke something or I got shot or something along those lines. Like what I
We
know that
already
sounds
know
really, but I'm
Joey's.
saying like we're talking the
Oh
extremes. We're
no,
going from the lowest extreme to the highest extreme. What is an injury you sustained when you were serving?
knee
I'll let
injury.
the young guys go first.
Knee injury that cost me a surgery, and pretty much you need your legs and Marine Corps. If you don't have those, you pretty much they're like
Your several legs.
yeah, like you can't do everything with full range of your needs. They're like yeah, we kind of don't need you too much anymore.
Aw. It seems to be a thing. That's when you get like medically taken out, isn't it, from the military at that
Yeah,
point?
medical
If you are
discharge.
not, yeah, if you're not too useful anymore. Ugh.
Yep.
Anybody else?
Um,
What about you,
so
Burner?
so I started developing arthritis in my back and scoliosis in my back from so I was a chemical dude. I was trained at a technician level, so we're carrying the SCBA gear on our back, the same tanks that like firefighters carry.
Mhm.
So for upwards of an hour on end, you get like 5 minutes break, and then back in suit, get the tank back on, put a fresh tank on, doing hour-long mission training.
Ugh.
Hmm.
Yeah, I guess for me it's let's see, I had a broken nose, broken hand, but neither of them were. The funny part is both of those were not. One of them was suffered. I guess it was suffered while I was on the ship and working into uh, taking care of a patient, a drunk, belligerent patient who cold cocked me as we were trying to take care of him, stitch him up, and then broken hand was actually a sporting event. But for myself as an older veteran, I guess, of the group here, I the older I got, the more I could. I wish I had done more to document what we were doing when we were doing it, because now a lot of the things have caught up with me at my age, and a lot of it was from carrying backpacks for the longest time, coming in and out of a helicopter. My hearing is really bad. A
Isn't your
lot of it.
back bad too from sleeping on the racks and stuff like
Sleeping
that
on the
as well?
racks is the probably the worst thing that you could. We didn't even have a bed on the ship, and on in the field when I was in Beirut, we slept in a warehouse on a cement floor, and that's why
Comfy.
Mom Sue can't imagine that. She because I hate going camping. I don't want to go camping, and I don't want to sleep on the floor. I want to do, I've gotten a little bougie. I'd rather sleep in a nice hotel somewhere. But
Bougie.
um, but at this point, when you done all of that, and it's a cold floor, hot floor, um, in the dirt down at Camp Lejeune. I don't want to do that anymore. So I'm
Oh
sure
my god.
a lot of what I have now is attributed to that
Mhm.
indirectly. I mean, some of it is just you get older, you have certain pains, but indirectly, I'm sure a lot of that contributed to some of the things I have right now. And I've had no luck myself dealing with the VA, but then again, I haven't really pushed it. What I would tell every young military person is document your injuries while you're doing it. Get it in your
Mhm.
records. Keep a copy of your health record because the VA will do everything. Their first answer is going to be no, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Have to keep fighting, to keep your paperwork. I wish I had done that.
So I what I've experienced from other people that have um, retired out of the military and stuff like that is going into the civilian world is like the biggest struggle from, because this is what they know now. Their mind has been trained to be a certain way for the military, and they really don't train you to go back into civilian life. What is y'all's experience with that?
I can tell you from how it is now, and then we can kind of how it is now to where they can give their perspectives of when they were in and what,
Mhm.
so you can see the difference in how they do things now.
Mhm.
Um, they've started, at least at this command that I'm at, it was the first I had seen of it, and it's been really pushing a lot. Is not only do they do a transition class where you are required now to take a transition class called TAPS, but they've also started doing things called Skill Bridge, where you can actually um, get basically it's like an internship in a sense like that. While you're in, you spend like 3 months working at the last 3 months of your time in,
Mhm.
you know, learning a trade or learning something or doing a job for an outside company, and then that way once you get out or once you hit that time where your time's out and you either take terminal leave to your right towards the end or you get out, you have something lined up, you have a skill or a trade that you can use when you get out. When I first joined 12 years ago, that was not that was not a thing. It was not pushed that often. But
Mm-mm.
what do you guys see from what it is now to the differences from when you guys were in with that?
You're absolutely right about that, Cass. I think it was still theory because there was no transition. It was like, hey, here's your ticket, here's your information, here's your DD 214. Later.
Mhm.
So transition is there was no transition. You're just back in civilian life, and you pretty much got to shut it off or try to remember what it was like before you went in.
Right. Like you
Especially
Find
had
being,
to
like-minded
basically figure it
people.
out. Mm.
especially seeing stuff like going to the PX and stuff like that, and I don't even know if the PX still like no taxes on the PX. Like now you're going to deal with taxes and stuff like that, or just eating just like you go to the cafeteria, you eat for free. Now you got to actually go find somewhere to go to eat.
Mhm.
Like a lot of stuff you had access to gone simply because you had an ID, so you were allowed to go in. Now you're like, oh, I got to sign up for this and that. Like, why? That's just why I'm wasting all this money to do this when I used to be able to do it for free and like knowing that hey, you got to be here at this certain time or this happened on this day to absolute freedom. The most people are like, oh yeah, I want to get out for freedom, but the concept of getting out for freedom and then actually experiencing it and not knowing to do with that said freedom is the hardest part.
You were
Oh.
used to a specific routine.
Yeah, you were given a direction. Now you're your own direction, and you're like, what do I do?
Mhm.
Right. Burner.
Uh, so as someone who's gotten out more recently, I know TAPS wasn't 100% required, at least for myself and a couple of my buddies who got out around the same time. Uh, it probably would have helped. I've noticed uh, a big culture shift from talking to friends that, understand the military versus people that I was friends with beforehand. I I've had to like cut people off because they truly didn't understand what it was like, or, you know, the type of experiences I had, they really had nothing to compare it to.
Mm-hmm.
As far as like work and stuff, I've noticed, at least personally for the area I'm in, uh, Iowa's widely known as one of those states that super supports their military, but a lot of the job market here in Iowa doesn't like hiring veterans, especially protected veterans, because of the fact that, you know, a protected veteran can, keep their job because they're still transitioning out. They're still getting out of that headspace. I've been turned down for a lot of jobs that I know I'm qualified for, and I know that I could do a lot better than people that are there,
Mm-hmm.
simply because of my prior work history as someone in the military.
Mm.
Just for clarity, TAPS is the Transition Assistance Program.
Mm.
It's supposed to provide information, resources, and tools to service members and not just them, but their loved ones too,
Mm.
to help from military to civilian life.
Mm.
And just to kind of give you an idea, you were in for 3 years, right, Soul?
Yeah.
Imagine being in for 3 years. All you know is grunt work, marine work, all that stuff. And then say, hey, now I'm not saying it's better that they make it mandatory now, but imagine dealing with that, maybe having a deployment under your belt that may have been challenging. And
Hmm.
they say, okay, hey, here's TAPS. Okay, well, how long is this class? They're like, it's a week.
Oof.
So you have a week long class of being in a classroom. You get some pre-separation counseling hours in there, not much, but you get some. But it's just that's all you get. That's all these guys are getting, and guys and gals were getting out of that.
Yeah, well, I could tell you something as the old man on the in the screen. There was no The only thing we knew about taps was it's time to go to sleep when
Yep.
I got out in
That
1984. So when I got out in 1984, you just had to do whatever you had to do. And the military was like, thanks for serving. Some paperwork. Don't let the door hit you in the ass. So when we left, um, that is a rude awakening. I did 7 years, um, 2 combat tours, as I was saying. No guidance when we got out. No how to get a job when I got out. No counseling. How to make your way back into society. Which I guess we'll talk about this here momentarily too, about truly what's going on in veterans' heads when they get out, and the damage that's done. Um, so yeah, we didn't have any of that. We didn't have a computer. We didn't have the internet. So all of it had to be done by going to a library, doing your research, trying to figure out what to do, how to write. I didn't know how to write a resume. Didn't have to do that. So it was tough. And what they have now is it the best? Um, no. Could it be better? Probably, but at least there
It's
is
something.
something. It's
Mm-hmm.
something that they're providing. I don't think it's enough, but it's better than what it was back, 30 years ago. I mean,
It's a start.
um, it is, and I mean, I told you I had to transition out, and I didn't want to work in medicine anymore. I didn't want to work in an ER. I didn't want to work as a nurse. I thought about it. I could have
Mm-hmm.
done that. I could have easily gone that direction, but didn't want to, and I had nobody to talk to. And I couldn't. I couldn't. I had a family by that point, and it was all about them first. And I think though that's what helped drive me is that I had a wife and a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So I said I had to put money on the, bring money into the home, bread on the table. So that kind of kept my head, in a good
Focused.
direction and focused.
Mm-hmm.
But nowadays, um, even with TAPS class, guys are getting out. And I do want to add one thing when you talk about transitioning that people often forget. Like you have three guys here that have done three distinctly different jobs.
Mm-hmm.
As a Navy corpsman, as a medical person, if I wanted to transition out into the medical field, it was easier for me. But if you're a grunt and all you've learned how to do is build bombs, there's not a lot of companies looking for bomb builders when you get out. So those guys have a tough time. If you're an infantryman and all you've been doing is learning how to shoot, well, what kind of jobs are available other than becoming a cop
Right.
when you get out? So I think those young men and women now that are in those types of fields, the transition back to civilian life, whether you spend 4 years or 24 years in, is very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we see it all the time. We see it on active duty people with suicide rates, etc. So,
Mm-hmm.
Here's a question for Papa Tony. Back when you were deployed before phones, how did you stay in touch with family?
Stone tablets. Stone tablets is what
smoke
they did.
signals.
Can I tell you how much I've been told how lucky I am that I have a way to communicate with Joey when he's on the ship or when he goes somewhere? I am reminded that back in his day, they didn't have any of that, all right? And
Well,
I have to be grateful.
how did I communicate? You communicated when you were deployed. It's like the movies that you guys watch. If you watch an old Vietnam era movie or World War II
Right, like,
movie, mail call when the helicopter brought mail to the ship, everybody was excited. Everybody was excited to get letters from home, boxes from home, cookies, cakes,
Care
uh,
packages.
uh,
Care
yeah,
package.
care packages, rum balls, because that was as close to alcohol you were going to get if you were deployed. So yeah, that's how you did it. It was mail calls and out every once in a while. Even when I was stationed in Japan
They would
on
send
shore,
birds with like
uh,
little things on the little feet.
yes,
No.
yeah, pigeons.
pigeons.
All we had was you had to go to a certain place on the base.
Mm.
uh, it was a bunch of phone booths, and you paid, like $10, and the $10 was good for about 5 minutes worth of a phone call back home. So even when I was stationed in Japan, I talked to my mom and dad probably once every 2 to 3 months because I couldn't afford to call back home. So yeah. Now I will say this to Sabrina's point. I think families now are very lucky
Mhm.
to hear their loved ones when they're deployed, especially when they're deployed on a ship. They're very fortunate, but there's a however. You can tell there's a however coming here.
Mhm.
However, what's good is also bad.
A
Um,
100%. I'll
because what happens is if Joey calls Sabrina
Mhm.
and Sabrina's had a bad day with the kids, and she shares that with him. The problem is when you're deployed, you feel helpless. You feel like I can't support my wife. I can't support my children. When you didn't have that, so that's the bad part. The good part, yeah, you get to talk to them. The bad part is when something is bad, you feel helpless that you can't help. So
Mhm.
in my age, when you didn't have phones to do that, cell phones, at least, yeah, you didn't get to talk to your family that much, but you also didn't have that, you were always worried about them, but you didn't feel helpless
Mhm.
because you didn't hear the day-to-day grind that they go on back home to support the
Mhm.
household. And I think there's a pro and a con with that. Sometimes just being gone is good. Just be
Right.
gone and come back.
Mhm.
So that's how we communicated letters. We had Marsgrams, and of course, if there was an emergency back home, a death in the family, and they still do this, I think, Joey, right? The Red Cross would get a hold of you and
Yeah, they still do that.
get you to come back home.
Yeah.
But the Marsgrams was that I think they've gone away. That was actually like what do you call it, Joey? It's kind of like a telegram, a
Mhm.
Yeah.
Western Union telegram.
Yeah.
Like you were allowed to put like two sentences. Hey, hope everything's doing good with the kids. I'm going to be coming into port soon. I'll give you a call.
Mhm.
That's how.
Yeah. So a question for all three of y'all. What is the worst food you were served in the military?
Everything. No.
Oh my God.
Medium rare chicken.
Bag nasty.
Ew.
My first experience did on a shingle.
Shit on a shingle. That's Wicked's favorite.
It's actually really good now if it's made well, but
If it's made
as an
right, yes.
if as an Italian kid, I'm like, what in the hell is that? So, I had never seen that before in my life. Well,
Okay, look, I grew up in Louisiana and we had all kinds of different stuff.
What's the things that are wrapped in plastic? The that you would take on when you're
After
deployed.
food that you eat.
Ah,
MREs,
MREs.
MREs.
Yeah,
That's
MREs,
what
Oh,
I was talking
meals
about.
MREs are
ready to
actually pretty
eat.
good.
I still
MREs
think
are
that people have their favorites. They
MREs are
actually
yeah,
great.
have their favorites.
yes.
Not
MREs are
when
not that bad.
not when you're so when
Not when
you're
it's all you
deployed
have to eat, yeah.
when you're deployed and you are used to being able to get food like when you're on the boat or something like that, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Hey, by the way, this ain't happening no more. We forgot to, or we skipped a stop to for for replenishment. So everybody's gonna get MREs now for a couple days until we get that next stop in."
I didn't
And
mind it. I like the dehydrated shortcake that you can strawberry shortcake that you can rehydrate and stuff. So that wasn't too bad. The
some
best
of
thing
it
is
got
when
better.
Yeah, the best thing is when I was in Lebanon with the multinational peacekeeping force, we would trade MREs. So
Mhm.
the French and the Italian had the best MREs. They actually had wine, had little bottles of wine in their MREs,
Wow.
and
Yo, that's
and
bullshit.
I
yeah,
need
Why
those.
is
it's
that?
spaghetti. It was fantastic.
You know
So
what?
they would love our cake and Hershey bars and stuff, and we would get some wine and some great minestrone soup and things that we don't get in our MREs. So
I like the little hot sauces, little hot sauce bottles you get with
Little
the
XP
yeah,
MREs.
Tabasco.
saves
Yeah,
MREs.
the Tabasco. I like
Tex
that was my favorite thing to get ever.
I feel
I
like
would always
Peace has
steal them.
a monopoly on that.
better than the Sea Rats, which I've had those too early in my career, which
The
What's
were
can,
that?
the can
they
ones.
were out of a can. Yeah, they were out of
Oh
a
my god.
they were pretty horrible. What you see in the old movies where they're opening up a can, they
Mhm.
had what's called a John Wayne. A John Wayne was nicknamed after John Wayne because it was a can opener that you would attach to your keychain or something like that to open up the can. That was
Wow.
pretty. That sucked. Those sucked.
I have a kind of serious question for the three of you. Now, um, one thing that a lot of people don't see, well, they see the outer portion of it. They don't ever know the details of what goes on behind the scenes. They just see kind of divorce rates and things like that in the military and people separating, people just getting married for that, get that TRICARE, you know what I'm saying? Get that TRICARE pay. That's what, some people do now. When it comes to relationships and or marriages or, when you were any of you in a significant relationship while you served? Are you still in that significant relationship? And if not, what did you learn from that experience? What did that time in service teach you about that experience with somebody? Yeah,
We got
yeah,
Whoever
Yeah.
wants nothing.
we got nothing.
yeah.
Silence. No one offered up nothing. All right.
I could put it best way. No, never been married. Wasn't in a long term relationship. I was 18 in a different land with beautiful young ladies. Yeah, I sowed my seed.
Wow.
I enjoyed my cultural exchange.
I'm sure I have, a brother or sister somewhere in the wilds of Japan
Hold on.
somewhere.
I mean, I had a lot of buddies get married because I mean, beautiful women, and back then I just probably saw this thing. They want to come to the U.S., so it's almost like a preferred match. But I was just young, like I'm, I'm here I'm here for a short time, but I'm here for a good time.
Hey, whether it be
Uh,
serious or not, that's a
yeah,
relationship nonetheless.
true.
I'll let Berna go next. I'll go.
So I wasn't in anything serious, but obviously, newer age of technology, I was swiping Tinder on my way back home from Christmas, and there was this chick that I met, and long story short, I didn't know she was married. She was living on base, so I thought she was just stationed there. Um, her husband had, kindly greeted me in my company parking lot with a 12 gauge to my forehead.
Kindly greeted you.
I like the way you said
Kindly.
kindly greeted me.
That's one way to
He,
get your attention.
he
Right?
got out of his truck. Well, from all the drama that was going on, he had some things going on. He was on his way out. She didn't want to stay with him. She was just trying to find another way to stay on base.
Mm.
And so we kind of hightailed out of that situation. Really didn't pursue any relationships after that for a couple of years.
I'd do it.
Yep.
12 gauge to the face. Yeah, no, not worth it.
Definitely not.
Papa Tony.
Oh, damn it. Hoping you forget.
Of course not.
Uh, so I had a couple of weird experiences, a couple that I don't want to talk about. Uh, at some point in my career, while I was in Japan, um, I I was 19, 20 years old, so I do
So
what
you
19 and
so
20 years old
you pulled
do,
a soul.
and
Had a good time.
then I ended up coming back. I ended up marrying Joe's mom, and was the Navy life hard? Was. It was, and then right back in the reserves. Obviously, Joey's mom and I got divorced, and then now remarried to Mama Sue, and it. I didn't have to deploy during my reserve career. Um, that doesn't mean it wasn't hard because I had a full time government job with travel. Then I had my reserve job that occupied a lot of my time. And the higher rank I went, when I got more responsibilities, it actually took a lot of time away from the family. And I did the best I could to balance my civilian job, my reserve job. Joey was young and playing sports and trying to be there for him. So even though I didn't actually deploy, Mama Sue will tell you I kind of was a lot of times. I was kind of present and absent at the same time, and I knew it. Um, and I just you try to do the best you can to balance your life.
I
So
say you still do that. I mean, I mean that in a good way, but in also the fact that you still travel quite a bit and you're gone for long periods of time.
for 2 weeks, starting next week. So and I think you have to have a strong woman behind you, and even though at times it was very, very challenging when, um, Mama Sue and I got married, and we brought two families together, and I wouldn't trade that for, I love it, love it. I love my family. I love it. That opportunity was amazing and still is. Wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. But I was very blessed to have a woman that stood by me, even though at times she wanted to throw a pan at my head. And I didn't get things done like she would love to have had if I was fully dedicated just to one thing. So you have to have a strong spouse to support you, and
Right?
if you don't, the marriages, and I think a lot of people make a big thing in the military about marriages and such, but the military is just and the same thing with veterans and suicide. It's somewhat of a microcosm to what's going on in society, and
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of marriages nowadays that fall apart at a moment's notice,
Mm-hmm.
just because of the silliest things, and they don't stick through it. Anybody
Mm-hmm.
could anybody could stay married when it's easy, when everything's
Mm-hmm.
going well.
Right.
It's can you survive when things are not going well? When you're having a
Mm-hmm.
financial downturn, you have an illness, a disagreement with your wife or your husband. Can you stick through that and come out the other side? Because the one thing I've finally got to learn, and actually going to church has really got opened my eyes to that. The preacher always says in life we're either in a storm, coming out of a storm, or getting ready to go back in a storm. And if you really think about it, that's the best advice anybody can give you. Just know that's coming. Everything's going good today, and tomorrow something happens to change all of that. So we're not guaranteed anything. So you have to have strong spouses to enable to put up with you, especially in the military. You see this in police, cops, firemen. They have the same challenges
Mm-hmm.
because they're gone. They're working a lot, so you have to have a good support system behind you. And I did. I had a great wife, and all the kids supported what I did, and they understood. And hopefully, now that they're all adults with their own children, they understand it even more.
I like that. That was good. Colleen, I think this is Colleen, asked, do you still make your bed the way you were taught in the military?
Gosh, do
No,
that. Do
no,
that
no,
shit.
no.
So probably the first thing you did was mess up your bed. Like, yeah,
I,
be
uh,
organized.
Sometimes.
Colleen, your mother would tell you absolutely I do not make the bed like I did it. I had to learn how to make hospital corners, and no, I do not do that anymore. I will
Uh,
make the bed, but I won't be that level of detail anymore. No.
let's see. Spider said, was told by my grandfather before I went in, never hook up with anyone on base because you never know if they're married or not.
I
That's
never
Right.
got that advice.
that sounds like great
That's a
advice.
good advice.
Yeah. Yeah. Rumors are also a large reason for divorces for military personnel whom are under 25. Too many people want to believe the rumors and not talk it out.
Unfortunately, even with that,
Hmm.
the rumors are a factor, but
Hmm.
9 times out of 10, it's not even that from what you see, unless they're dual military. It's the fact that you marry somebody that's a civilian because you think maybe you were high school sweethearts, maybe you were dating right before you went in. Um, but nobody really understands what it's like to be on deployment or be gone for whether it's 8 to 12 weeks to 6 months to a year. Nobody really understands a person that is like, yeah, I'm joining the military. Oh, okay, great. You'll be able to support us. Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to support you. We're going to be fine. And then all of a sudden, 2 years later, they're divorcing because they separation
Too much.
is too much. And then trust. That's when separation becomes a factor, which leads into trust being, questioned, which leads into rumors so it kind of all full circles itself. Um, on different, at least in Navy wide, and I saw that in the Army side from when we were at Fort Benning with
Oh
Sabrina.
yeah. It's not for the faint of heart, that's for damn sure.
No.
Um, is what do you miss the most from your military time? That if you know that you, I because everybody has the good and the bad from their career. What is it something that you miss the most from it? Anyone?
I'll let the young guys answer first.
Okay.
Uh,
Youngins go.
so, I mean, the the schedule didn't bother me.
Mhm.
Having the same routine every day, I have trouble with remembering. I need to be here at this time. I'm really bad at it. If it's the same thing every day, I can get over it. Uh, my friends, probably the biggest thing I miss, especially being young. Like I have a friend who lives in Cali, one lives in New York, one's in South Carolina right now, finishing out his contract, and then I have another friend in Texas, and we just can't ever seem to all meet up.
Okay. So
I think he nailed it on the head. The friendship. Some of the
the
friendships he
friendship.
built there, it felt more like family than like outside of it. You know,
Mhm.
you kind of go through things with them that you just don't go through with your regular friends, and it's I don't know, it means more.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think to double tap of what these guys are saying, I especially after 27 years, it's the you hear this in analogy in sports all the time where a quarterback like Tom Brady gets out and he's having a hard time because you don't have that close knit friendship anymore. They're not there. I mean, but you do develop life friends, and um, I mean, Mama Sue could tell you. I mean, I have more friends call me from all over the country than I even have locally,
Mhm.
and they know me really well. And some of them we were in a combat situation together. We were on the ship together. We were overseas together, and I could tell you as when you compare those people and those type of friendships that were developed in those scenarios compared to what um, the equivalent to my civilian job and the friendships I developed there is no comparison. I think there's something to be said, as Soul said, as Burns said, and they weren't in as long as I have. Those even that should tell you something. That short amount of time that they were in, those are really the friends you develop, and you don't have that same thing a lot of times on your civilian jobs. I'm not saying it doesn't happen,
Mhm.
but I think when you're in the same boat, you're like I was stationed overseas. I was 18 years old, and I mean, you're kind of like a little bit worried. You're not at home, you're not in your routine, you're not with your regular friends, and all of a sudden now, those people become, I think Soul said it, they become your family
Right.
and take care of each other, and those are lifelong friends that you'll that'll be there for you, at the
Mhm.
end of the day. So uh, that's that's the hardest thing is not having that friendship. The work is not the big deal. It's the people.
Right. Spider said the traveling all over Europe free of charge.
That's what he would.
And Colleen said, "What do you do to pass the time on the boat when you're not working?"
Ugh, workout.
Work out, eat, work out.
I did not work out. I'm just gonna say that right
Oh,
there.
we did,
They did
we
not.
did. We
They did
worked
not.
out. We worked out. We ate. Uh, played cards. We
We had
had
spades.
we had poker,
Jesus Christ.
spades. We uh, we had movie night every night. So the ship had a closed circuit TV, and that see, this was a different age, right? Not everybody got to watch their own show. You got to watch whatever the CO decided to put on that night, right? So we would watch that. You just yeah, that's a great question because it's the time does not move. You're kind because like I don't know how the guys that went on subs do it. See the light of day. At least on the ship, I can go outside and hang out on the flight deck or
When you remember to.
right. Yes, that's no. Joey's point. It sounds funny. What he means is that you're working and you're working. You're working a lot of hours, and you want to work because there's nothing else to do. I mean, you can't like just go down to Walmart or something. So you do work, and you kind of look forward to it. And if you're not doing that, you're sleeping.
Yeah, you could turn into a gym rat, or you could.
Nowadays, it's hang out in the marine berthing because they got all the good movies on hard drives and pass hard drives around and get all the good movies and good
What was y'all's
shows.
favorite movie, Joey?
Yeah,
Oh,
what was your favorite movie, Joey?
okay. On my first deployment,
And whichever deployment, pick one.
uh, on my first deployment, the two movies that got banned on the ship, uh, halfway through until our Tiger cruise at the very end was Pitch Perfect and Frozen because they
Oh
got
my gosh.
overly request. They were requested so often that the MCs on the ship were like, okay, we have a bunch of other movies that we need to play. We can't keep doing this. So they sent out the CO had them send out a mass email to the entire ship about how those movies can no longer be requested on the ship
So Sabrina, let me just jump in here.
up until
Let
the
me just
Tiger
jump in
cruise.
here. When I in 1983 and 1984,
Uh-huh.
those movies would have never been shown on the ship. I could
Oh,
tell you that right now.
yeah.
All
That
right.
when I was
So
told that that was one of his
absolutely,
favorite movies was
yeah,
Frozen,
absolutely not. You
I
know.
was like, "Oh," and then he taught the kids and they were singing the song and doing the whole thing and I was like,
Look,
"Oh my
look.
God. Now I
You
hate
gotta
the movie."
you gotta understand. It's kind of like that what is that? That old torture technique where you just sit and you listen to eventually it grows on you. And when
No,
it
it
does when it does grow, you say that because you just saw it a couple times. You're just like, this is get the shit out of here kind of
trash.
thing. This is
Exactly.
trash. But when it's on, and when I say it's on, I mean those two movies are playing back, back, to back, to back, day in, day out for 4 months straight.
Like elevator music. It gets
It
in
be
there.
you
You
can
guys
just
are
like
giving the Navy a really bad name right now. That's all
look
I can
look
tell you.
look. It was between the Navy and the Marines on the ship that were at requesting this music, because they were just like, oh man, these songs are bumping on Frozen, and then Pitch Perfect. Well, we all know Pitch Perfect.
No, we're going to
Is
lose the war to China. I can tell you that right now.
Drawing up formation, going, let it go.
Let it
Yeah,
go. Let it go, Joey.
or they're gonna be
I
doing
mean,
acapella and stuff.
a-
We're
oh
gonna. You
yeah,
guys are
at
gonna
least
get on the flight deck and sing them a song while
Oh,
they're
it,
uh,
shooting missiles
Mama
at us.
Sue, Mama Sue, she's in chat and she said, "Oh, Joey, we went to see High School Musical. You love them."
oh, I do. I'm not gonna lie. Psh, yeah, no, it's great. It's fantastic. It was a great time.
Don't tell me the Marines want
But
to hear Pitch Perfect.
oh, you have no, really, really, a bunch of attractive ladies on screen singing, and you think no Marines on the ship aren't just like, God, those women are hot, and they're just out of all the movies that they can, that is a female-led movie, and they are all. Like the Marines were the ones that requested that. I'll just say that much. They requested Pitch Perfect the most. The Navy requested Frozen.
Oh, No, because that made
Look,
it better.
he tried to drown that out. Frozen.
Yeah, he
The
did.
baby
Yeah, yeah,
requested
yeah.
Frozen.
Uh-huh.
Joey requested
Look,
Frozen.
He's
I
trying
had
to
it on
blame it
I
on the
had it I
name.
had it on a
Go
hard
ahead.
drive, all right? Look, I didn't need it on the TV. I could put that all right on my laptop and just sit there and just lay in my rack and watch it.
Ask how much that's played in my house. Go ahead.
When I got back, it played a lot.
No, it didn't. The
When I
hell
got
it
back.
did.
No,
No, it
when I
didn't.
got
When you got back, no, it did not.
No, not this time. But that time it did because you had never seen it. You're just like, "Ugh, fine, I'll do it."
No, no,
And
no, no,
then
no. No,
and
what you
then
did was you got the kids hooked onto it, and then I
That's the
wanted
way
to
to
break
do
the
it.
TV. That's what I wanted to do
oh
because
no,
I
I
That
was
gotta go to
sounds
work.
tactical.
I gotta go to work. Okay,
that's what
bye.
I did.
24/7 Frozen in the background. Why are we listening to this again?
Mm-mm.
I
Meanwhile,
mean,
we were watching shows like Iwo Jima, Midway,
Mash.
Top Gun. You know,
yeah,
pretty
no,
much hardcore war
the,
movies.
the the biggest, most popular movie this time was Top Gun 2. That one and what was that movie with Matthew McConaughey where he goes into like a different goes out into space and stuff like that.
Oh, I know which one you're talking
Yeah. Though
Mm.
it was that one and Maverick. Maverick and that were the two like most played ones on the ship this time.
You know, but going back to Colleen's question, that you know, there's not a whole lot to do. I mean, there is now. They have more. They can play video games, and you know, we had to play cards or watch the one movie that was showing at 8 o'clock at night before the lights out. That was a routine, and everybody got together at a certain place on the ship and watched the show, watched the movie.
Oof.
But
Well,
I
I
don't know
gotta
if I could do
bounce.
that.
I gotta step away, guys, because I gotta make some macaroni and cheese for the kiddos.
Well,
But
thank you for
you guys have,
joining
about. No
us.
problem.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you
yeah,
for
you
joining.
guys have
Thanks
fun.
for stopping in.
Of course.
You played music, Mama said.
yes, I did.
Music
She's
was a
right
big
about that.
factor.
That's my good wife with good memory. I did
Yes.
play music back then. I played bass guitar myself, and my good friend Ken, who lives down in Florida right now, he was a guitar player, and we had our own little band on board the ship. We played like really heavy metal stuff, like Judas Priest,
I would do
different stuff like
anything
that.
to see you do that now.
I haven't picked up a guitar for 25 years, and it
I'm
really
sure
breaks
it'll
my heart.
click.
Yeah, like it's, like riding a bicycle. I'm sure it'd come right back to you.
Right.
You know, I thought about maybe when I retire, it'd be something fun to start doing just for the hell of it.
I
When
see
I feel like I have
Jerry's.
more time.
It is.
So,
Don't argue with my son.
Ooh.
Sorry. Joey was trying to get all.
can
Anyway,
I ask a question to the other guys?
oh yeah.
That I mean, so there's two of you guys served a different period of time. I mean, nowadays when you hear about the issues with homelessness with the vets or suicides with vets, whether they served 20 plus years like I did, or you know 2 or 3 years, and they're having that transition issue when they come back in. Um, did you see it during your time getting worse as time progressed, or did you see it in your barracks in your with the gang that you hung around with?
I think the only time we really had to deal with suicides was during boot camp. I guess the sun had changed from you know going in. So I mean, for Marine Corps, it's a little bit more stressful than other branches. I guess because they're mentally kind of breaking you down. That stress pushed a lot of people over the edge.
Hmm.
So we had a lot of suicide watch and stuff like that. A lot of people kind of got discharged because mentally they couldn't handle it. But I mean, everybody I know who got out, nothing crazy like that. I mean, there's things we dealt with, especially seeing I was in during the time of I was actually getting out right around 9/11, just when they were just starting stop loss on that.
Hmm.
But it was mainly just boot camp. It was really one of those make or break you. Like they
Mhm.
knew who to watch out for and who not to. I mean, it was just it's an adjustment period.
Sure. How about you, Burner?
I I'm gonna have to kind of agree. The most of what I've seen as far as at least the suicide aspect was during basic. One instance being like there was this guy. It was right after one of our early ruck marches. He had broke the tip of his razor in half and went to swallow it. Well, a couple of his bunkmates had like tackled him, kind of like when you see a dog eat something they're not supposed to, like held his mouth open, got it out of his mouth before, he got far enough to swallow it for it to get stuck. But like in my unit, uh, anyone kind of on that path, they really just kind of they don't check on them. They kind of assign like a battle buddy system. They're pretty much isolated, and I know at one point I was one of those people who was dealing with a lot of mental stress, and I kind of got to that point. My battle buddy and I were supposed to meet up at certain points throughout, the night. They were supposed to come in and check on me, make sure I didn't do anything. And for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks on end, they didn't do anything, and they're rewarded with like a company coin.
Hmm.
And as far as like homelessness, Colorado's already pretty bad as it is, but we had like homeless vets who would take the abandoned entrance into base and sneak into barracks just to wash their clothes.
I in my I guess I'll just say my generation, they didn't, as I said, they didn't have this distress thing wasn't there, but at the same time, I cannot recall the same level of suicide rates that occurred. I mean, I know of one instance, and that was in Beirut, Lebanon, and a young lance corporal who was an EOD guy working on bombs. Um, he picked up a cluster bomb and it went off. It went off, and nobody understood why he did that. He was an expert. How the hell did this kid blow himself up? Basically, a cluster bomb, for the people online that don't know, when that explodes, you've heard that on the news lately. Those are the bombs we're sending over to Ukraine. When they go off, they go off in midair, uh,
Mhm.
at about 6, 7 foot level, right about human height level, and they just basically, when you hit the body, your body becomes like Swiss cheese. You don't blow up, you just become like Swiss cheese. And when we were cleaning the body to send him back home, we reached into his jacket, and we found the reason that this kid did this. It wasn't a mistake. He literally killed himself because it was a Dear John letter where his girlfriend or his wife, I can't remember now, had left him. But we didn't have the same suicide rates. And, I think right now the suicide rates in the veterans are like 20, or active duty, are 20 out of 100,000, 24 out of 100,000, where in the civilian world it's about 14 out of 100,000. So it's a real
Mhm.
deal. It's a real problem. Um, you think, oh, 10 lives is 10 too many. 24 lives is way too many.
Mhm.
And I think, as I think Soul said, is when you guys, the sudden change is tough. The separation is tough. I think they go into the military, think it's going to be one thing, and not realizing that it's not. There's a
Well,
lot of
Mama
challenges.
Mama Sue said, "Honey, tell the dry cleaning fluid."
Oh, the dry cleaning story. Oh, God, she does have a good memory. So
On top of it,
that's why I get in trouble a lot. Her memory's way too damn good. Um, So we had an incident on board the ship. It wasn't a suicide per se, but it can go to relate to what you're saying, Burner and Soul, about separation and anxieties and stuff and what guys would do. We had guys drinking cough medicine to get a buzz, but the incident that she's asking about, we literally we had unbeknownst to a lot of guys on the ship, some of the guys that worked in supply, the dry cleaning plant on the ship, were drinking dry cleaning fluid, trichloroethylene is what it was, and mixing it with Coke. So it's an alcohol, right? But it's a different alcohol comes in different forms, chemical forms. And unlike the alcohol you drink, the whiskey, bourbon, beer, that's one type of alcohol, but the dry cleaning fluid is a whole different type of alcohol. Give you the same buzz. The difference is that the minute it goes into your body, number one, it'll start burning a hole in your stomach. But the worst part of it is that it will actually start dissolving your brain cells, not killing brain cells, dissolving the actual gray matter in your brain. So one
They did
night,
all this for a buzz?
all of this we were actually out to sea. Yeah, I think the question that you that was Wicked asked about, what or Colleen asked, what do you do for fun? And there's not a whole lot. So nowadays they can play games, video games and such. We didn't have that, and so these young guys, right? They had access to the trichloroethylene alcohol that for the dry cleaning fluid, and they were mixing it with Coca-Cola, playing poker in their bunk rooms, and they were drinking it. And I was on duty one night, and somebody came running up to me and said, "Hey, Doc, you got to come down to the berthing. SK2 Humpty squat, can't move." And walked down there, pulled the curtain back to his rack, and rigor mortis had already set in. He was 19 years old. I'll never forget that. And when they did the autopsy, they just found that his stomach had almost dissolved and his brain had almost completely dissolved just by drinking that fluid. And we had been out to sea and not hit it. We were in Beirut during the war there, as I said earlier, and we had not hit a Liberty port in over 90 days. And there's a tradition in the Navy when you're out to sea and you don't hit a Liberty port for 90 plus days, they have what's called a party on the flight deck. The irony of this is the very next day that this happened, that this kid died, we were all going to get a chance to go have a flight deck picnic, and everybody was going to get hamburgers, hot dogs, and 2 beers that had been bought on the ship. And they were just drinking, getting high off this stuff, and it ended up costing his life. So it may not have been suicide, direct suicide, but out of direct boredom and stupidity.
Okay.
Boredom and imagination will get you in trouble.
That's
Yeah.
Sure does.
insane. Just
That
again for a
is
buzz. I don't see
wow.
how that pays off. Like,
Imagine having to you be the skipper of the ship and having to write a letter to that young man's mom and dad.
I,
One thing when you lose somebody in battle, right? It's another thing than a son like that.
right. Oh my goodness. That's, I actually had never heard that story before.
Yeah,
That's,
dry cleaning fluid is not something to catch a buzz on.
yeah, no. You would think they'd know that, but I guess they were bored? I have no idea.
The
That
very
I
next day, they got the 2 beers, and that night, the skipper came on and warned everybody, "Don't do it." Somebody did it again, even after that young man died. Luckily, this time, somebody came and got us really quick, and we were able to pump the stomach out and save that. But
I hope they got
Sometimes
a royal cussing out after being warned and still to turn around and do it again. That's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Because there's
Uh,
always one. There's always one.
there is always one. That's a fact. Colleen asks, turning it into something lighter, did you have a Bubba to your Forrest Gump and how did you meet them? That's her question.
I love
did I
that.
have a Bubba to my Forrest Gump?
Yes.
Uh, that's a tough one. Um, I don't know, guys. What do you think? I think we all had that one guy that like was our like you would go to war with, right? Like
You
you would
Mm-hmm.
first.
got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the guy that you hung out with, that they'd be the first one to step in front of a punch in a bar. So yeah, I had a couple. I had a couple of good buddies, and I'm still go. I'll see one next week when I go over to Seattle.
Mm-hmm. What about you guys?
I would say I have a couple of those too.
Yeah.
100%.
Same. What about you, Soul?
Oh, I definitely know. I had a couple. Uh, Mainly because I only know that because you know you got a friend when you well, it's frowned on for underage drinking, but hey, if you get promoted, it's what you do. And I know I got shit faced on a holiday weekend, and I know the only reason I woke up because I had alcohol poisoning. The only reason I woke up is because they were there for me.
Oh my goodness.
Yes,
Yep.
good question.
That's a good question.
Right?
Wicked, do you have any questions?
No, I think you've done asked pretty much everything I would think to ask, and everybody in chat's been asking too.
They have.
Well, I have one. I have a
Do
question.
you oh any
And it,
good pranks that were pulled during boot camp
Oh,
or
yeah, that's a
deployment?
good
That's a
Oh,
calling question.
oh
Oh,
boy.
That's a good one.
Not just in boot camp.
hello, Poseidon. Go ahead. What's the best ones if you can think of a few that were like
Uh,
that stick out to you?
Oh my gosh.
it's hard to pick.
Yeah, that's
Tell
I
our
have
Any
some
done to
secret.
you guys?
I have some pranks that I could talk about, but I don't know if this is a family channel or not. If
This
I
is an
could
No,
say.
18
go ahead.
plus channel.
It's an 18 plus channel, so you can share.
Oh boy. Well, it wasn't in boot camp. It was throughout the Navy. I mean, we back in 1977, 78, people were not as strict as they are nowadays, right? Like you can't get away with doing have any kind of fun is frowned upon nowadays.
Mhm.
But we used to pull pranks on each other all the time. Let's just say there was times where body parts were exposed, and sometimes certain body parts got hurt. I could attest to that personally. So
Mhm.
yes, so there was practical
There was
jokes
pranks.
being put and
There was pranks.
pranks, and sometimes the pranks got very physical, and sometimes it's a life scarring experience.
Mama Sue said hubby would have to out himself.
I would. Well, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. I don't think she means out himself.
No, playing catch with
Listen,
yeah, yeah, what?
What?
Placenta?
Lucina?
Oh, oh, oh. Well, okay.
What?
That's not a prank, but yes, we would. Okay. Good one. Good one. So the one I was thinking was the one that's close to my heart, and it has to do with a zipper and a body part that a zipper might come in close contact with when you're trying to pull a prank on somebody else. So,
yikes.
um, That's an ouch is a good thing. And it was actually written in my medical record by the doctor. Ouch. He actually had that. I had it in my medical record. So that's the one I was thinking about. But what she's talking about when I was working in labor and delivery, um, we got bored at night, like on the midnight shift, and the baby was born, everything was fine, and you have to, when the placenta comes out, you have to save the placenta, wrap it up for the next day to bring to the lab, because the lab makes sure that the placenta is intact. Because the placenta is not intact, and if some is left in the mama's belly, uterus, she can die, she can bleed out. A lot of people don't realize that. So, being young, stupid kids, we would get the placenta and we were off in another room. Mama's fine, everybody, baby's fine. So, there's nothing going on in that regards. But we would play hot potato with the placenta.
Wait,
and,
That's
and
terrible.
try to
Wait a
catch it without blood coming out of it and exploding on your uniform, on your smock. So, yeah, that was. I
that's
don't
how
think
y'all.
I don't think my children know that story. So
That's interesting.
yes, Colleen, that's your dad here.
Hey, did you know
Listening
that your
to the
dad
woman.
used to play hot potato with placentas? No?
No,
Okay. No,
I
we
heard
did not
that
know
one.
that.
No, now you do.
Colleen
All
said
right,
hot placenta for the win.
Burner. Any fun pranks or
So
hazing or anything that went on?
so it didn't happen. It happened in basic. It was one of the old famous drill sergeant pranks. Um, so another platoon had forgot to lock up their foot locker, and so one of our engineering drill sergeants went through with a stethoscope, undid all of their locks while we were at the range, and hooked all of them together, and he called it his master lock. And he carried it around with him, and everyone goes inside. He doesn't tell them that they're their locks, and they're like, well, none of our stuff is locked. And he's like, oh yeah, throws it in the middle of the bay. You guys have 5 minutes to get this undone, or we're
Oh,
going outside.
and how did that go?
Well, 5 minutes later, they were outside, and the master lock was still intact.
Yep, that's what I figured. And Soul, you got one?
I think the best one for us. I don't know how y'all drill instructors have like that hut where because we have drill instructors 24 hour where they sleep when we sleep, but we all decided to get up and move all our racks and block him in. So we kind of waited for him to get up, and then one of those like kind of moments because like we already knew we were going to pay for it. But he's like, once y'all get this, clusterfuck back in order, I'll meet you out there in the smoke pit because all y'all gonna you're gonna pay for. But it was like, I guess by that time of boot camp, we look forward to it. So like, he had a smile on his face, but he was like just kind of hold it back. But he was just glad that we were in a jolly mood. But just to see that look on his face, like how the hell did he move all this quietly and wait for me? Like yeah. He enjoyed it, but he's like, yeah, I'm gonna make y'all pay. But it was fun.
Yeah, I'll show you a motley crew.
Oh, look at that. Look at that picture.
Yeah.
Hey,
Oh, I'm not used to seeing this anymore. Like, I'm so used to the facial hair now.
That was those green tags there. We were on a presidential detail up in New York.
I actually have a photo of me and a couple of my buddies
Here's
too.
me, and yeah,
Really?
this was up in front of St. Patrick's Cathedral.
Oh.
In his peanut butters.
Is that what they call them? Peanut
That's what
butters?
they call them, peanut butters.
So my buddy Julio was super into the can't remember what the cameras are called, the
Kodak?
Polaroid.
Or no, the Polaroid. There you go.
So I have a Polaroid of me, my buddy Julio, and my buddy Jared.
Yeah,
Oh,
Like
look
the
at
week
that.
before I left.
Yeah, you're too young to have Polaroid pictures.
He's super into old
We love
technology.
Polaroids.
He had his Polaroids, his Kodaks. He's super big on photography and videography.
Anna said, sorry, late to the party, but I didn't know about the placenta party hot potato shit. So,
Hey, no harm, no foul. Everybody had fun, and nobody got hurt. It wasn't
just
like we
make
were throwing
sure.
a bomb around or anything.
I mean, I would have treated it like that. If it would have bled on anything, I would have cried. Like, no, thank you.
Wicked, I'm gonna send you this picture because I don't know how to display it.
Oh, are we gonna see a picture? Oh, this is the best.
Navy corpsmen are known for having a strange sense of humor.
Yes, I agree. Just by that story alone. Oh
Put
my
it
The
in
goodness.
the put it in the chat here in the Discord call, and I can
I mean,
pull
when
it up.
you're dealing with especially pregnant women, that was a lot of fun. So
There we go.
Well, while we're waiting for that picture, I do have a question that I want you guys to leave off on.
There we go.
And it is for advice
If
for
y'all
the people
can
that are
see it,
still in the military, that are still serving
that
for
is
us
Soul's
and are.
picture
Oh, where is it?
on screen.
Oh, there it is. Oh
Yep.
my
Look
goodness.
at that.
Look at Soul.
Stop, Charlotte.
Long time ago.
must be on Twitch because I don't see it.
It is here.
Charlotte.
Oh, I see it now.
You see it? Okay.
Charlotte! I'm sorry, y'all. My daughter,
It's okay. It's okay.
she made my whole screen go black.
It's okay.
All
Okay.
right,
Well,
we can see
everybody's
Cool.
still
here.
up. Yeah, everybody's still up. It's just your video's off right now.
Look
Okay.
at you there, and that's the best uniform in the military right there.
That
Nothing like a
It's
Marine
very
Corps
spiffy.
dress
It's
They
uniform.
spiffy.
they're beautiful.
Ryan
Hoorah!
said a
Hoorah!
Soul Insidious face reveal.
Yep.
So I have
It's
one
okay.
real quick.
Oh, go
Um,
for it. Go for it.
so very common term, especially amongst those in and previously served the military liver as far as drinking goes. Uh, do you guys have any stories regarding civilian friends or anyone that you met after you got out where they challenge you to a drink off or they challenge you to a drinking game and your military liver really shows?
all of them.
Uh, I think my wife would tell you that one of the most impressive things she ever saw me was on our honeymoon when the guy was I won a bottle of tequila with all the other honeymoon husbands that were there when they were pouring tequila straight down our throats, and I was the last man standing. And while everybody else kind of dropped out, so she had never seen me drink like that before, and probably never since. So, but that was my exposure to it.
Do y'all have
Okay.
one?
So I have one. So it was shortly after I got back. Um, my my roommate at the time had constantly been badgering me about me never, hanging out when he's throwing parties and stuff to come out and drink, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm personally not a huge drinker, haven't
Mm-hmm.
really ever been. Um, so I'm like, we'll go drinking for your birthday. So on his birthday, uh, me and a mutual friend of ours at the time, uh, don't really talk to him, but that's not the point. So we we pre-gamed for his birthday, right? We sat down, had a couple glasses of wine, kind of relaxed, ease ourselves into everything. And then we took him to a couple bars. The night lasted all of an hour and a half. We went shot for shot with him. After an hour, we go to the second bar. We go shot for shot with him at the second bar for like 15 minutes. He says, "Hey, I gotta use the bathroom." Another like 10, 15 minutes goes by. The bartender comes up to us because we're playing pool and goes, "Hey, your friend needs to go home." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "There's puke all over the bathroom. Like, he can't stand up." And so we walk in there, and he's on the floor. He's got tears running down his face, and he's like, "Hey guys, I thought you left me." So he was gone. We're still, we're still good. I can still go to bed at a decent time. We get him home. We have our other roommate drive to come pick us up because he wasn't 21 at the time. And getting my buddy out of the car, if anyone knows what a synchronized swimmer is, he sideways dove out of the car into the middle of the road, and we had to hobble him inside.
Oh my.
And the next day, he's like, "I'm not drinking with you guys ever again." And I'm like, "This is why I don't drink with you guys."
Anna, you are not wrong. Joey has passed out in a bathroom at one point.
Oh yeah.
He sure did. His 21st birthday.
Mhm.
Good times. Good times.
Sounds
Now,
good.
recently, well, not recently, but Soul was streaming and going shot for shot. And I think that was the first time we had experienced him, or at least I did, got to see him. And I mean, he handled himself very well, but for sure, like I was like, "Don't do it." In his chat, I'm like, "Don't do it. They're trying to get you wasted." And he's like, "I'm gonna do it," and he did it anyway. And yeah, he has a high tolerance, I would say.
If he's actually really drinking it,
Oh,
We'll
I'm
never
drinking.
he
know
could be a
because
good
he's
actor.
always, yeah, this is
I mean, he
true.
is the
No.
Pumpkin King. This is all we ever really see of him.
This
Oh,
is.
I enjoy my
I mean, we
treat.
got a face reveal today.
We did get a face reveal today.
That looks
Oh,
like someone who could drink.
So
Anna's just out and Joey over here after singing Barbie Girl. Joey did, yeah, he did. He sang Barbie Girl, then he had to go to the bathroom, and then we had to go find him. And then we found him. Your
I am
sister brought it up. Don't come for me. We're talking about drinking moments, and
I am
yours
very
is not.
fond of sake though.
That's
yeah.
Oh,
Joey.
that is
Joey likes that a lot.
dangerous.
I can't stand it. It tastes like rubbing alcohol.
It's terrible, but it
It
gets
Yeah,
the
I'm
is.
not a
job
fan.
That's how I feel about
It
Grey
does get
Goose.
the job done. This is true.
done.
So what was your question? Your question before the drinking was about what advice to people that
Oh,
are.
yes, yes, yes. So to end the stream, because we're getting to that point, what I wanted to leave it with is your advice that you guys have for people that are still in the military, um, or people that are thinking about getting out or anything like that. What would your advice be? What would you leave somebody on a note with of what to expect, how to handle it, all that kind of stuff? Anything. Any words of advice?
Do not watch those movies. Do not watch these new age movies on
Mhm.
military. Go old school. Watch Full Metal Jacket. Not just not for like the movie aspect. That
Mhm.
part for me, that boot camp, which is about as accurate as it got because they actually have real footage locations. So just to be on Paris Island, like, oh yeah, okay, I recognize this area. But I mean, understand that when you're going in there, you're changing your life, not a aspect. You're changing your whole life. How
Mhm.
you think, how you do things. I forgot how to use words like me, myself, and I for 6 months because it was all about us, we, them as a
Mhm.
unit, and no matter what unless you sign up for, read the contract.
Mhm.
That's something some people don't understand. If you're serving four, you're actually going to do eight as reserve, not like part-time reserve. Like just in case, hey, they need to call you up, they can't call you up. It's just like understand what you're getting into. Just don't do it on a whim. Because I mean, it's a great experience. I mean, I can't take anything bad about it. I enjoyed every bit of being in the
Mhm.
military. I enjoyed boot camp. Boot camp was like an eye opener. It was just a big like, oh, the world is bigger than my state or my town, my city. There's a lot going on. It's fabulous, and for those who are in it, hey, yeah, you're doing it at a different time and place than I'm doing it. It seems way different from what I remember. So
Mhm.
enjoy it for what it is.
I think that's great advice, honestly. I really do.
Bird.
Burner?
Um, my biggest piece of advice for whether you're going in or getting out, if you're not 100% sold on full-time active duty, reserves, or, you know, National Guard, do something part-time. There's always the option to switch. Same with getting out. If, you're not 100% committed to the idea of getting out, find a reserve unit, find a National Guard unit, find something that will help ease that transition
Mhm.
because there's more than likely people there that have been part-time for a long time, so they would be your go-tos to help make sure that you have the easiest transition back to a civilian world.
I like it. Papa
So
Tony.
yeah, I guess my approach is somewhat the same as what these gentlemen are saying. What I would tell people that are in right now, and I've told this to my son, to other people that I work with, because I work with DoD right now. I work for the Navy now, so I'm
Mhm.
surrounded with active duty military all the time and active reservists. So I, I if you're in the military now and you have a job and not to you need to be very careful of really setting your expectations because the people that are disappointed with and they're in the military now and want to get out
Mhm.
understand that the outside world is not waiting for you. They're not
Mhm.
waiting to give you a job.
Mhm.
They don't owe you a living.
Mhm.
Um, and um, you might have a rude awakening when you get out because even in the worst scenarios, you do have people we were talking about earlier about friends and camaraderie with people you're surrounded with in the same unit.
Mhm.
Um, that's not the same in the outside world. People go home at the end of the day and they could care less about you.
Mhm.
So be very careful what you think is a golden parachute on the outside. That really isn't. The
Mhm.
military, for whatever it is, um, it's not for everyone. So you got to know that going out, but it does give you some good tools to use, but you have to set your expectations correctly. And
Mhm.
people that are in right now that are on this podcast or have to understand that the biggest problem veterans are having when they transition out is their expectations are unrealistic of what the civilian world is going to offer you.
Mhm.
They could care less that you serve for 5 years, 20 years, 30 years.
Mhm.
They can care less. They don't care about that. So eh, just set your expectations right. Have a make you get transitioning out, whether you're transitioning out in after 3 years or 30 years, have a
Mhm.
plan and execute the plan and adjust accordingly when the plan is not going well. Because there's a good chance that sometimes those plans will go awry and you'll have to adjust yourself. But have a good plan, have an education, have something to go to. Financially, the military, especially for enlisted people, doesn't at face value doesn't look like it's paying you very well. But the average E5, E6 that's in the military that is living in government housing, you have to make $100,000 on the outside just to have a living. There's people right
Mhm.
now making $70,000 that can't afford to buy a new home with the interest rates that people are exposed to, the high prices of renting a house or renting an apartment or buying a house or buying an apartment, putting gas in your car, childcare, all those things, where the military kind of gives you a lot of those things for free. So you may not make a lot of money, but be prepared and take advantage of the GI Bill. Get your education, or if college is not your thing, that GI Bill could be used for trade schools. Just prepared when you get out. I wish I had 7 years of broken service when I got out for active duty. I wish that somebody had told me to join the reserves. As Berner said, the reserves are a great thing, and now I'm retired. I have a pension for the rest of my life. I have TRICARE not only for myself but my wife. So those are little things that when you're 20 years old, 22 years old, sometimes you don't think about what's going to happen down the road. So what my advice would be, plan and then start executing the plan and be ready to move right or left to make the plan happen, because inevitably those plans might go south on you.
Right.
Life has a way of doing that.
Yeah.
It does. It does. Before we go, there was a good question here that Masu asked. What is, in your opinion, the best branch of military to go in? I knew what she was doing when she asked that.
Oh God.
Depends on what you're trying to get out of it.
Yeah.
Ah, that's true. What's your favorite?
I'll jump in. These other guys are quiet. It's the United States Navy, the best and the only one. It's the best branch of service, and the Marine Corps might argue. They always say the best, the Department of the Navy is you have the Department of the Navy and you have the Department of the Marine Corps, and the Navy is the Marine Corps is the men's department. So that's always the
I mean,
ongoing
I
joke.
wouldn't have gone that far. I'm saying, when we need our transportation needs, y'all,
But no,
y'all push a mean bus.
I think the Navy is great. I think the Air Force is.
Club Med.
I think the Air Force takes care of their people, I think, better. They provide better housing and than I think the Navy or Marine Corps or the Army does. We always seem to be challenged, and the Air Force always they'll spend the money on their people first, and then they'll worry about, oh, we don't have enough money to finish that runway, so you got to give us more money. Where I think the other three services spend it on, fighting equipment first, and then later on think about
I don't
taking care
know.
of the
Some
people.
some of them rifles keep falling apart a little bit, but
Oh,
we
that's
got
what.
duct tape. Duct tape,
Yeah,
our best friend. We
yeah,
make
but
it
they're
work.
not spending it on that. They're not spending it on people. But I still think I think the Navy is good, but I like what Sol said. It depends what you want to do. I mean, every branch of service has their own, like, some of their subspecialties. I think the Navy. The reason I say the Navy is only because, like, if you want to go into combat, like an Army guy does, there's things in a branch. There's places in the Navy you can just do that. SEALs, OD, et cetera, et cetera. If you want to become a pilot, you don't have to go to the Air Force. The best pilots in the world are Navy pilots, right? Um, so we have a little bit of everything. I mean, pilots will tell you that. I always know when I'm on a plane, I know if that plane is got a retired Navy pilot or a retired Air Force pilot.
Good
A
to know.
Navy pilot, they like to stop short because it's like a runway on a flight deck, and 9 out of 10 times I get it right, because I'll ask on the way out, Navy, Air Force, and I could tell you. So I really think the Navy is, but only because it has a broad spectrum of specialties you can learn between. I think the Army and the Marine Corps guys and even the Air Force will tell you that Navy medicine is probably the best. The Navy probably has the best medical branch of everyone. I
Yes, you
see,
do.
I see,
Yes,
I
you
see
do.
Burner shaking his head.
Yep.
So,
Y'all actually
uh,
care.
Redbeard says Navy has more planes than the Air Force, and Army has more ships than the Navy. Yes, that's all
Incorrect. What?
around.
Who said that's incorrect?
Redbeard.
That's incorrect.
This is
Okay.
another vet that we have
Yes.
in the chat.
So I think that's a trick
Navy is the best
question.
all around.
So we do have more planes, more aircraft than the Air Force does. The Navy has more ships. The Army has more boats. There's a difference between a boat and a ship.
Mm.
So the Army has a lot of these landing crafts, like you see in the movies, where they're landing on the beach to make a beach attack, like with the Marines and the Army guys on.
Amphibious
The,
landings. Yeah.
yeah, so those little
We get their
smaller,
hand-me-downs.
right? They're like, so those boats have
Army claims their boats as ships. That's what he
yeah,
said.
no, I don't care
No
what
one
they.
said they were the brightest.
Yeah, I can identify as a rock. Doesn't mean I'm a rock. All right. So they can claim they have more boats. I can tell you. They don't call them ships. We have to inspect them. In my job right now, our guys out in the field have to inspect those boats.
Mm-hmm.
They call them boats. They don't call them ships. They have a
All right.
they have a few ships, but not like the Navy does.
Well, I want to thank each and every one of you for
Yes.
enlightening us on, some things that we did not know about. And I honestly want to do this again because I feel like we just did not have enough time. Because I'm sure there's plenty more to learn. But
Yeah.
you guys have really opened our eyes to a lot of stuff. And the stories are amazing. I think that was my
Redbeard
favorite
said do
part.
a part two.
I think we will. I think we are going to
I
do a
think
part two
so.
because
Yeah.
we definitely did not have enough time. There's more questions, more stories, everything
Yeah,
to
and I
unpack.
need to prepare more questions myself.
Um, but yes, thank you guys so much for telling us all your stories and being vulnerable, and
We loved
we
hearing
appreciate it.
every bit of it. We love
Yes, and
getting to know y'all more.
Anna said this seems
Thank you.
very therapeutic. I hope it was a little therapeutic for you guys as well.
It
Um,
is.
and if we do a part two, I hope you guys join us again because
Yes,
it was a good time.
definitely. And maybe next time we can get Redbeard up in here with us.
Yes, get our other vet in here. I don't know what he's doing right now. He should be in here, but that's all right. We'll let it go. Won't harp on
Shame.
it too much.
Shame.
But like I said, thank y'all. And do y'all want to leave with any last words of encouragement or anything like that? We always have something special
Final
that we say.
words.
Final words, yeah.
I just want to I'll share it with them too, but give a shout out to my buddies Julio, Jared, Mitch, Kevin. Hope you guys are doing well. And if it says military grade, inspect it first.
I like it.
Good advice. Soul?
It is. It was. It was awesome to meet the Godfather, and the fact that he was a corpsman, just utmost respect. I mean, he bridges the gaps between Navy and Marine Corps. Like I said, we don't heal ourselves; they do. We only had one job, and every Marine is a basic rifleman in the day. And for him to step in the shoes with us and be out there, that means the world to me. So just to know him, that's just respect automatically. I'm just honored to be able to meet him.
Thank you, Soul. It's an honor to meet you, and it was an honor to serve. And I said thank you for giving us. It is therapeutic to talk about it. Um, there's things that we mentioned today that I really, as I said, there's some funny things, but some serious things that I really don't talk about with much of anybody, not even my own family. So talking about it is good. All I would say is to everybody, enjoy life. Life is fleeting. We're not guaranteed tomorrow, so enjoy every moment you can, make the best of it, and always remember we're here talking about it, and there's people we serve with that are no longer with us, right? That have either died in combat or died afterwards or just passed on in life. So um, let's not forget them because they gave every ounce. They gave their life and soul for to so we can do this fun stuff being on a computer right now. So I don't think we ever should forget that.
Yeah.
Agreed. Absolutely agree with that.
Queen,
All right.
final
All right.
words?
I got nothing. Honestly, my father-in-law, that you can't really top that. That was the
Do
best
you
way to
wanna
end it.
go out with the events coming up?
Sure. Let's see. We have a few coming up. We have the Mortal Kombat tournament coming August 26th at 3 p.m. my time. So definitely do not miss that. That is going to be a lot of fun. I'm expecting to whoop everyone's ass in it. So
I've been
do you guys
practicing.
you could that's a good thing. You should practice. All the practice will be necessary. The Raw Nation Anime Watch Party that is also coming up August 26th at 7 p.m. That's going to be a good time as well. Any and everybody is welcome to join. And that is it for this month as of right
We
now.
and I think it's September 1st. We have the Zodiac and Astrology podcast,
Yes, we do. We do.
so be looking out for that one September 1st.
Yes, we will be
And
planning another vets
yes,
podcast for sure.
most
So definitely
definitely.
keep a lookout for that as well.
And my final words are, as always, you are smart, you are kind, you are important. Always remember that.
Thanks, everyone.
Oh,
Thank you,
keep an eye
thank
out September
you.
2nd for the episode of Raw and Uncut podcast on the Raw Nation YouTube channel as well.
Yes.
But thank you guys so much. I think we are going to raid out Wicked. I
Yes.
don't know who you're.
Chaos, we're gonna raid to Ageman if you're in here. If you don't mind raiding us out.
Thank you, dear.
Thank you, thank you.